Yes, I noticed that as well.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my god, you missed out. Oh my god, it was like the best. Oh my god.
Like a roux to thicken the plot.
So coming off of Apocalypse Now, does that mean that Prototrope is a Saucier?
I'll take comments, questions, and complaints now.
Would that exist in Gotham?
That was quite a head full. Thank you, Chad.
So that was dark.
Broadcasting live from inside the power band, this is The Blah. In this episode, everybody dies. I'm your host, the Mulverine, along with the intrepid Prototrope, Jarhigo.
Hello.
And the always deliciously funny Algorithm.
What's up, guys?
Today, folks, we are going to be talking about the hot-off-the-press, controversial film Joker that was just released this past Thursday, and I am personally very excited to talk about this film.
Yeah, that was quite a experience.
Yeah, wow, that's one way to put it. Definitely. Chad, start us off. Where do we fly to first?
I think for me, the feeling leaving the theater is an interesting place to start, because I wouldn't say I left the theater numb. I left the theater stunned. And I can't think of many occasions where I've left a movie viewing just like blown away, but not in a like, this is a masterpiece kind of way, but in a like Requiem for a Dream, holy shit, what did I just watch kind of a way.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the ballsiness in the making of the film. And I don't think it was a bad film, but it was a pretty intense film. And I really hesitate to call it like a great movie because it's just so in your face. But it's a bit of a hard one to kind of deconstruct and form an opinion on. Did you guys have any sort of similar reaction when leaving the theater or experiencing the film?
I sure did.
I don't know if it made that much of an impression on me, but I'll get into that later. Going
into it, Ben, you were saying that you kind of weren't excited about it. Do you want to touch on kind of your reaction to it now that you've seen it?
Sure. I really enjoyed Joaquin Phoenix's performance. I thought he did a great job.
Ditto.
I thought he brought a real kind of a vulnerability to the character that I don't know if I've seen before. You know, it wasn't just over the top crazy. It was, you know, by the end of the movie, you're kind of like, okay, I get why he is the way he is. But I don't know. I mean, I am a little fatigued on the whole Batman continuum of, you know, vengeance that seems to be going on, you know. And I don't know if we want to get into that right now, because if I do, I'm going to start rattling off a bunch of stuff about the movie, and maybe we just want to keep things broader at this point. But
yeah, let's pause that. And Kev, I would be curious your initial impressions, and then circle back to Benny. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that sounds good. Because I'm dying to hear what Ben's going to say. I really liked this movie. I did have a reaction like that during and at the end of the film. At the end of the film, I actually said out loud, like after the lights went up, I said, wow, that was intense. And then I sat there for the entirety of the credits.
Same. Until
there was nobody else there, except the usher who was eyeballing me in that, like, are you going to leave now kind of way. And I thought what you thought, like, I was just blown away by the content, like what I was watching. Like, it was intense, but I also thought that it was a really good film. That's all I'm going to say for now.
Yeah, no, I felt similarly, and conflicted maybe is one thing I would add, but yeah, I felt the same way. So Ben, yeah, expand a bit on what you were saying.
Dive right in, Jarhigo.
Yeah, I think I can get in on that with you guys. I thought it was a really good film. Let me just preface things with that I thought it was a good film.
Batman fatigue, huh?
Batman fatigue, yeah. I mean, okay, so we never do this, but I mean, for the audience out there, you know, you're going to hear some spoilers.
Yeah, I think this is probably important to say that there's a ton of spoilers here, considering how soon it is since the movie came out. Good call.
Yeah, it's recent. I mean, typically we do older movies, and, you know, I mean, it is a movie review podcast, and if you look at the time signature, you know, I hope you would realize that we're going to give some details of the movie away if we're talking for an hour and a half. It's not just going to be like, yeah, I thought it was sweet. Yeah, me too. That was great. Give that a 8.6. Yeah. So, all right. Anyways, let me continue on my my Batman continuum fatigue thing. So the whole thing, Batman becomes Batman because he's pissed off that his mother and father were gunned down in an alley. And this movie basically creates a situation where, the Joker starts a riot, and in the midst of that riot is when Bruce Wayne's parents get gunned down. And then we also find out that, Penny
Fleck.
Thank you. I was going to say Flax. Penny Fleck, which is Arthur Fleck, the Joker's mother, made claims that Thomas Wayne,
Thomas,
correct,
was the father of Arthur Fleck, the Joker. So there's like this whole disgusto. I don't know. It just made me feel yucky. That whole thing, that whole continuum of this like weird like Romeo and Juliet kind of fucking family feud madness going on in the background of these characters just sort of left a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't like.
Okay.
I didn't care for that. I didn't care for all of that.
So Kev, as what I would consider probably the biggest Batman fan in the group, what was your reaction to the revelations that Ben's talking about?
Great question. I feel like injecting into the story, injecting into the mythos that Arthur Fleck is the son of Thomas Wayne. I saw it more as like they were utilizing it as yet another way to show how he broke and sort of Derezzed, if I can use a Tron term, and broke down into what he ultimately became at the end of the film. It was just one more straw on the top of the stack. So while I totally get where Prototrope is coming from with, this like bat fatigue, and it's like, okay, it's Bruce Wayne's secret half brother. I thought that they actually did a really good job of making it a device to show, how his world shatters more.
Yeah.
Could they have used somebody else and had the same effect? Probably. And then we wouldn't have had to have had this sort of kind of irritating like connection to the Waynes that, if I can just like jump into Jarhigo's skin for a second, like just didn't need to be there.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, I'm really glad they didn't go with that actually being a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That it was just sort of a device to ratchet up the tension a little bit, and yet another thing to fuck with poor Arthur Fleck.
Yeah, and I think that was sort of the beauty of it, Ben, was that they didn't. So they started to, and then they were like, oh no, wait, it's not. You were adopted.
Yeah,
and we were never together, and you're not my son, and you're not Bruce's half brother. Like. So they sort of deconstructed it as fast as they constructed it and left themselves with a great, motivation for his deconstruction, mental deconstruction, emotional deconstruction, psychic deconstruction. So that's what I think about that, because taking what Ben said in a vacuum, no, I don't like, if they hadn't done that, no, I definitely do not like that. It's, the connection to Bruce Wayne. And to take it a step further, once again, we see the death of, Thomas and Martha Wayne in the alley. Guy doesn't look like Joe Chill. He looks like just like a random dude who's like, hey, I'm just going to rob these people, and I mean, he just straight up blasted him, man. I mean, he wasn't like, hey, yo, give me your money. And there was like this, moment of tension or anything like that. He was just like, yo, give me your money. Bang, bang, bang.
They also set it up in this movie, that people were, I mean, it was clearly a time where the very wealthy were very wealthy, and everybody else is kind of left scrambling for their own. And, the whole initial train murder seemed to inspire a whole group of people to, especially because of the fact that Thomas Wayne spoke out on TV, being like, this person's a scumbag, and those were fine people that got killed. And, it was sort of like further stratifying the distance between, you know, the lowly common people and the uber wealthy, like Thomas Wayne and his family. So I took it at the end that like the guy that killed Thomas Wayne wasn't like about a robbery. It was about like recognizing Thomas Wayne and taking him out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Ooh, okay. Wow, I didn't think about that.
Which in a way draws a direct line to the Joker, right? Because he's the one that started all the, you know, social unrest and all the riots. So,
well, I mean, it's funny because like he did it and he didn't. He did it sort of by accident in self-defense when three people were trying to, you know, beat on him on the train. And that's one of the things I really liked about the film. Like I really thought it was well written, and I like the way that the threads all work. So you've got Thomas Wayne running for mayor, trying to improve the city, and not that I'm not trying to connect this to Batman Begins, but I'm going to talk about that film for a second. When they're on the train in Batman Begins, he says, you know, there's a couple of things that are mentioned, that the rich rallied together to try to save Gotham back in the day. And he says that, you know, we built the train as a cheap, free form of transportation to help the people of the city. So it sort of felt like this movie was taking place in that time period that he's mentioning in Batman Begins, you know? And, you know, it's I feel like the way everything rung out was sort of circumstantial, like what you mentioned about the guy recognizing the guy as Thomas Wayne, recognizing him as a rich person, and also as the Joker, quote unquote, starting this whole movement against the rich people. He didn't really, you know, orchestrate something consciously. It was a circumstantial situation where he was getting attacked and he fought back. And then all of a sudden, you know, somebody saw him. So they were like, oh, this clown, you know, killed these three rich guys. So now it's this whole thing, you know?
sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, I'll agree with you that I don't think Arthur Fleck was trying to orchestrate anything even at the end. And we don't need to jump all the way into detail about the end, but I think Arthur Fleck as a character through the entire film has only been trying to make sense of his own life and do what he thinks is the right thing to do for him, no matter how fucked up it is. Yeah, but he's not thinking about any larger picture or any other, you know, like he's not like trying to create this like, you know, revolution or anything. He's just doing what he's doing.
No, I agree with you, dude. And I actually think that what you said is sort of the central theme of the film, is that he is trying to figure out his place in the world. And at the end is when he figures it out. And he says, I've been thinking of my life, all of my life, I've been thinking of my life as a tragedy, and now I realize it's a comedy. And that is when he is finally broken. He has had enough of the violence around him. He's had enough of being a victim himself, you know, and that's when he breaks and he blows Murray's head off on live TV, which was shocking, you know.
So I've got something.
Oh, you do? You want to join the conversation? All right, I guess we'll let you. Go ahead.
Well, I just, you know, for a change, I figured I'd, you know, shut up.
Again, shocking.
In terms of the two things that you mentioned, Ben, I was similarly like, Jesus, at first when it came to the, like, Joker and Batman are brothers. But it reminded me a lot of, and wouldn't surprise me at all if it was lifted a bit from The Dark Knight, where the Joker in The Dark Knight's like, do you want to hear how I got my scars? And I remember the first time I saw that, and I was like, no, I don't. I don't want to know anything about you, because the fact that I don't know anything, I enjoy.
Yeah.
Same here.
And so he tells this story about an abusive parent, da-da-da-da-da, and then later in the film, he tells a different story to different people, and I was like, God damn, that's genius. It's genius, that the bait and switch, where you get that moment of frustration, and then it gets made right, and I feel like you guys touched on it in this particular film, but I really like that it didn't actually come true, and I appreciated that nod maybe to Dark Knight, and I thought it was well handled. So that one didn't frustrate me as much because the conclusion was in the right place, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the Thomas Wayne stuff, getting killed by one of the Joker's knuckleheads, or a knucklehead sympathetic with the Joker, maybe is a better way to put it. I really feel as though that didn't need to be in the film at all, and I think the film would have been significantly better if that murder and then the cut back to Bruce Wayne at the funeral or whatever it was at the end. I think cutting those two scenes would have made the movie like a full point better in terms of like a ranking. It really smacked of a studio pressuring some sort of tie-in to a movie that is a kind of a one-shot, to use comic parlance.
Well, it is a one-shot, if I may, because it's unrelated to any other film and will not be related to any other film, according to what I've seen, heard, and read. No,
but they did say like they might do another one, but I think they won't, you know? So I think it was more just him just shooting the shit in an interview as opposed to there actually being a reality to that.
No, I think it's lip service, man. But I agree with you, Chad. Like that scene did not need to be in the film, period. And the beauty of it is, if you took it out, nobody would miss it and nobody would notice it, and it would not be breaking one of the cogs on the wheel in the film. Like, the film exists perfectly without it, and you're absolutely right. It doesn't need to be there.
That said, I enjoy that the Waynes are in the film, and I actually do appreciate the scene where he goes and does magic for a young Bruce Wayne and kind of sticks his fingers in his mouth and makes him smile. Like, I think at the time, you're kind of like still under the impression that they might actually be, you know, brothers or half brothers. But I really thought it was like, oh, wow, that's interesting that they got a, you know, 8-year-old or 6-year-old Bruce Wayne. But that doesn't get destroyed by deleting the murder at the end, you know? So it would just be a simple fan edit to cut out 30 seconds, 60 seconds of the film, and it would make it significantly better.
I agree.
So why don't we back up a little bit here, because we're kind of the danger of the going broad is you end up talking about the end game a lot. So why don't we back up a little bit here?
Well, one thing that you were just talking about was the Joker. You were talking about Fleck and his kind of journey as a character and how it was him thinking he was doing the right thing, and then it turns into finding his calling. I kind of took it as like he was influenced by and touching on one of the real problems in the Gotham society, and his, I guess you could say, accidental snapping on the train and killing those 3 suits. Touched on a nerve, got attention from the crowd, and he clearly was in a place where he was craving attention. And he finally starts getting attention in a very unexpected way. And as he says later in the film, he didn't feel bad about the murders. And so it was like, I know that this is dangerous territory, but like, it's almost like reflecting of modern politics, where like sometimes the things that are being spoken about in the media, or that some of the more radical individuals on Twitter are frustrated with, are reasonable frustrations, but the way they go about, you know, adopting these personas or getting attention is through really fucked up ways, and twisted things happen as a result. And so I don't think Arthur Fleck was intentionally going down this road, but because he was so craving attention, he ended up a performance artist that murders for attention, as opposed to a comic who gets attention. You know, like, he failed so miserably that was the only avenue he had to have a stage to perform on, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. You just made me think of the comedian
from Watchmen.
Oh, right.
From Watchmen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the sense that, you know, sort of to expound more on what I said, which I want to make this distinction because I think it's important. I didn't say his calling. I said his place in the world. And you know, in Watchmen, the comedian says, you know, he jumps down. It's when he's with Night Owl, and I think it's one of the flashback scenes, and there's a riot, and he jumps down from Archie, and you know, and then the Night Owl comes down, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing, man?" You know, he's like, "It's all a big joke, man." You know, he's like, "It's just a joke," and that's where I feel like Arthur got to at the end when he was saying, like, you know, I've been thinking my entire life that my life's a tragedy, but it's really a comedy, and that's exactly where I think his head was, is that he realized that it was just all in utter insanity, and people were horrible and doing horrible things, and it's all just a big joke, and that's the beginning of that sort of being an agent of chaos and everything is a joke because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty powerful scene. The way, it was just conveyed that simply. I always thought my life was a tragedy, but it turns out it was a comedy. But, it's like a flip really switches at that point.
Exactly. That's what I meant too, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah. And very, very powerful scene there. Can somebody cue me in as to what the condition it was that Arthur Fleck had that caused him to sort of laugh at inappropriate times? I know he passes a card to, there's a point where he's on a train and he's kind of playing with the little kid or whatever. And the mother turns around and is like, leave my kid alone or whatever. And he starts laughing and she's like, do you think this is funny? And he hands her a card. But I couldn't see what the fucking card said because the projection out here was subpar, let's say.
It didn't actually say anything. It just said, I have a condition, hand the card back. So it didn't give much away there.
Okay.
I don't think it specifies.
Well, hold on, Chad. Hold on. It said, I have a condition. I want to say it said due to a brain injury.
Yeah, head trauma.
Yeah, due to head trauma that makes me laugh at all different ranges of emotion was the gist.
Right.
Sort of sorry in advance. Please hand the card back.
Right.
So that was that.
Okay. That was the impression that I got because I think there's a scene where he's talking to the to his his counselor or whatever, whoever's the social worker, and they just kind of open the scene up and he's laughing, but it seems more like he's crying. Like what's happening is laughter, but the emotion that's coming across is like sadness.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I looked it up.
Is it an actual thing?
I looked it up yesterday just out of curiosity, and it is an actual thing. It's called like Pseudobulbar effect or Pseudobulbar. I don't know. PBA, I guess, is a acronym for it, but it says exactly what we've been saying, like uncontrolled fits of laughter or crying up to multiple minutes, and some of the causes are like legit illnesses like multiple sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, but it also says stroke or traumatic brain injury. So I think it's just like dipping a toe in, I thought the choice to have some of the basis of his character being abuse and traumatic brain injury was really interesting. And the fact that this particular illness is directly connected to traumatic brain injury was a clever way to give the character some three-dimensionality.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the other dimension of that I don't know if that is an actual part of the real condition. The other dimension of that I got the impression that like no matter what happened, he laughed. Like if he was sad, he laughed. If he was afraid, he laughed. Like
right.
Like no matter what the situation, like no matter what the emotion was, like the way he reacted was with laughter. So. At least that's the impression that I got, and I thought Joaquin did a great job with that because that initial scene is like, oh my god, this is so fucking sad.
Yeah, and the first time he laughs on the screen, it's a little over the top, touching on what you mentioned in another episode, Ben, where you said that you heard a rumor that Joaquin Phoenix's performance was over the top. So when it happens, you're just kind of like, okay, and then it becomes clear what's happening. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think his performance was over the top at all in this. I thought he did a tremendous job.
No, agreed. Yeah, it was just something that you had heard or read, I think, right?
Yeah, and maybe that's why. Maybe somebody saw something out of context.
Have you guys ever heard of or seen the documentary about the Olympic snowboarder who gets a head injury called The Crash Reel?
No.
Mm-mm.
So Shaun White's a very famous snowboarder, won a bunch of gold medals, and it turns out, according to this documentary, he had a contemporary who was like as good, if not better, in a lot of ways, named Kevin Pierce. And in training for the Olympics, where Shaun White got his major kind of first victories, he was practicing on a halfpipe and cracked his head so hard that he got a severe brain injury. And the film is kind of a documentary about that and the aftermath. And I would recommend checking it out, man. It's really wild how severely damaged this kid ended up, and like the aftermath where like he regresses mentally to extremely violent, extremely troubled, and like lashing out emotionally and verbally in kind of an uncontrolled manner because of this single strike to his head. it's a sad documentary, but it was a pretty big eye opener for me on how severe, what would seem like a minor single incident can be, and so I feel like the choice to go with brain injury in the Joker is interesting in the sense of like it's grounded in reality, like it can actually really fuck you up.
Oh yeah, definitely,
no doubt, dude.
Well, there's like, why wouldn't it fuck you up? And of course it's going to fuck you up. But then there's like, I saw this documentary that was like, no, this is real shit. This isn't a movie. This is like filming this kid's actual fucking life falling apart. And it was just like, holy shit, So I guess there's like thinking about it and being like, of course it would fuck you up. And then there's seeing it. And that's maybe why I brought it up.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, there's, what is it? I think it's called CTE, and it's something that a lot of fighters and football players get, and it can manifest in some pretty much exactly what you're describing. So, those violent tendencies and kind of almost schizophrenic tendencies seem to creep out of that sometimes. So it makes sense to use that as a plot, I don't know, like I don't know how to describe it. I was going to be like a roux to thicken the plot.
Plot and device, like did you just say a roux to thicken the plot?
I like that. That's funny.
Yeah,
I love that. Oh my god, that's gold, baby. I love it.
So coming off of Apocalypse Now, Ben, does that mean that Prototrope is now a Saucier?
Ooh, whoa. Love what's going on here. I was just thinking, it's funny. I was just sitting here thinking like, wow, this is definitely one of our more serious episodes. Like nobody's cracked a single joke yet. And then you guys just went off. That's
Turns
great.
out Prototrope had a job as a Saucier in New Orleans. That's good stuff.
Well, I mean, the key to any good gumbo is, you got to start off with a good dark roux. So.
That's it.
There you go, baby. There you go.
And if you want to talk about darkness, man, there's some dark roux in this fucking movie. I'll tell you what.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
Oh, that was like the lamest segue ever out of your mouth, dude. That was great.
Yeah, whatever. That was like a fully conscious, like, it was like the first suicide on the show. Last week I was brutally murdered by Ben's witticisms, and this week I committed seppuku. That's a nice clean break, so we can start anywhere now.
Yeah, good.
I am completely lost on where we are. What?
We've made the roux, and now we're perhaps ready to start adding some ingredients to the stew that is Arthur Fleck.
Be careful, Ben. You're gonna die too if you're not careful.
Hey, we braked. I didn't know this was going in there, so of course you're going to put it in. But
it doesn't have to.
No, that's good. So Ben, by your by this rationale, it's time to sort of add in the mirepoix.
There you go.
Yes, of course.
Okay. I had a couple of thoughts before, but you guys were going off, and I didn't want to interrupt you. So those thoughts have now been lost to the ether.
Sorry, friend.
Maybe don't be. Maybe I'll get them back. Maybe not. Hey, you guys want to kind of just go through and just talk about things that we liked, disliked? I have a lot of notes. I mean, nothing like insane.
I would like to make a quick statement.
Oh boy.
Nothing crazy, just
here we go.
Just to say that, like,
yeah,
this is exactly what I want to see in a risky comic book movie. It's exactly the types of risks that I want these studios to take. Not that I want all the movies to be dark, but I want them to be willing to make an R-rated, really fucked up, hyper-violent, Clockwork Orange-esque, don't sensationalize violence, risky-ass movie.
All right, now I'm glad you said that, because that is part of one of my notes and something that I really want to talk about, because I 100% agree with you. This is exactly what you said, the type of comic book movie that needs to be made. Ballsy and not wimping out with a bunch of like, oh, let's add this teddy bear in to make the kids feel better. Fuck that. This movie in many ways, this is exactly what makes DC great versus Marvel. Marvel was always cotton candy, and DC was always like dark, cerebral stories that really made you think. In fact, they were so, what's the word I'm looking for? DC stories, when I was a kid reading comics or a younger person reading comics, were so cerebral that they were beyond me, to be perfectly frank. And it really wasn't until I grew up a little bit that I was able to appreciate those stories. And so that's my segue into one of my notes, which is DC Warner WTF. Like what? And I didn't write it to be funny. I wrote it because I don't understand what they're doing. Like, you know, you want to make a DCU, you know, you want to make like something similar to the MCU. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, let's just take a look at what we have so far. We've got Aquaman.
That was horrifying.
It wasn't Wonder Woman, which was
exactly
a great film, a great period piece, and a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not, I was a huge fan of Man of Steel. I thought that was a really well done Superman movie, really well done Superman story. Zod, the whole thing, it was great. I watched it numerous times. I am one of the few people that really like Batman versus Superman. I watched the theatrical and the extended cut. Of course, I have both. I really enjoyed that as well. Justice League, what happened? Suicide Squad. I have not made it through the whole thing. I don't know what's going on with that. And then, again, circling back to Aquaman, like, little fluffy, little too fluffy, and too Marvel, and too quippy, kind of like what Justice League ended up being. You know, it's like, where is the dark tones, man? This is what we want to see out of a DC movie. I want to see stuff like Man of Steel. I want to see stuff like Wonder Woman, where it's like, it's real. Like, the problems are real, you know, like Snyder did a great job of like injecting that and Goyer in that script in Man of Steel, like having real problems that these people are having to deal with. You know what I mean? And it was like problems that we as the viewer can identify with, you know? And I thought that was really great. And that's what made those films great. And it's like, here we have this movie taking it like a whole nother step further. And I think like this is really the baseline where all of these DC movies need to be, is like this. Now, I don't mean hyper violent. I'm not, you know, trying to, you know, push that agenda. But what I'm saying is that like, this is like, it's gritty, it's real, it's risky. And it's like, this is exactly what a DC comic book movie should be like. And this is how they should differentiate themselves from Marvel, period. End of story. So that's my sort of tirade about that. I'll take comments, questions, and complaints now.
There's a lot of things I could say here. A lot of things that I would like to say here, but I don't. I'm just going to bump to Chad while I think about things for a minute.
Okay. I mean, I had a look around on the Joker's Wikipedia page, and I saw at one point there was some comments about DC Studios realizing that the DC Extended Universe wasn't going as well as they'd hoped, similar to what you're saying, Kevin. And as a result, they decided to make some choices in production to make some more one-offs or more risky moves. And they even said, which I don't follow this stuff too closely just because I like to avoid spoilers and that kind of stuff. So they said something like DC Black is like a movie line that they have, which this is the first movie in, or one of the first movies in, which is kind of standalone, kind of darker or riskier stuff. So I don't know if they're going to continue with the Aquaman style cotton candy extended universe. I would have to imagine probably, but
yeah. Hey guys, real quick, Chad, I got to interrupt you. I do need to try to get him Tiny Gojira down for bed.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, I guess just like I would prefer that the DC Black thing was just DC, and that they would not go down the road of trying to copy the 30 movie giant arc extended universe thing, because I appreciate the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what it was able to accomplish through to, you know, Endgame, but I do feel, looking back, 6 months or whatever now on it, I do feel like they were almost too connected. And I saw someone griping about, the Spider-Man coming back online and how, because of the fight with Sony, and how this particular guy on Twitter just wanted to see a Spider-Man movie that was about Spider-Man, not a Spider-Man movie that has like 4 things tying into 4 other movies. Like, just focus on Spider-Man instead of tying a bunch of shit together, which I can appreciate. And so I kind of do appreciate in this case that Joker is a kind of standalone thing. They're not going to go and make 15 more movies with Joaquin Phoenix, and it can just be taken as is.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I mean, here's the thing. This movie didn't even necessarily have to be the Joker.
No, it didn't.
I feel like that just was, I mean, like, I think I almost would have liked it better if it wasn't tied into that. It's fine that it is, and it's great. It's really well done, but you know, it's to me, it's so far removed from convention. I almost feel like it would have been better if it wasn't the Joker. If it was just a movie about a guy that, you know, like, just keep all the stuff, you know, but remove all the canon DC elements, and you still have a great movie. You know, maybe a better one. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I guess the fact that it was like one of the only R-rated superhero movies in DC's portfolio maybe is kind of where the differentiation is in terms of the hyper-violence and stuff. I do feel as though it was well played. I think it was extremely risky to make this movie because of how it could glorify a psychopath and make you sympathize with him to the point where you hero worship as opposed to being horrified.
We keep throwing the word risky around. I don't know if I want to use that word, but I know what you're saying, because I definitely felt a lot of empathy for the character of Arthur Fleck. I didn't, that they did a good job, I guess, because that completely, my empathy diverged from the way he started dealing with his situation. You know, I felt for him and his situation, everything that he was dealing with, his you know, his mental instability, and just, you know, his shitty life, you know, having to take care of his mother and having a shitty job, and, you know, getting shit on by his coworkers and getting shit on his job, and, you know, and just everything that happened to him, I really felt for him, you know, like everything that came for him, I really felt for him. And it was kind of a tragic story, in my opinion. And I often felt sad, you know, through the movie, more so than shocked or something along those lines. So I really did empathize with Arthur Fleck, but, you know, I wouldn't say that I have hero worship for, you know, psychopathic, you know, for the resolve, for the you know, for what he became. I don't agree with that.
No, but I've actually like seen people on Twitter that do have that opinion, you know, like the 16-year-old, you know, who might be like, fuck the system, I'm an anarchist, and they're buying into it and being like, yeah, we need to go out in the streets and murder people. And it's just kind of like, yeah, that's not really the point of the movie, guy, you know? So
really, is that really a thing? Is that really going on?
Oh yeah, I've seen
like,
some
like in a large.
I don't know how large. I can only speak anecdotally of some of the people that I've seen on Twitter, for example. But
right.
You know, there are things that are happening, you know, politically nowadays that is inciting violence. It's inciting, you know, screwed up behavior, and I didn't dive into looking into this movie too much because I just didn't want to bring in other people's opinions before speaking about it with you guys. But anecdotally, I believe that there are some communities, like incel community, for example, that hero worship the Joker, and there are some fringe communities that take these various kind of characters on as avatars. And I guess like the only thing I can say that I can somewhat relate to is like, you know, it kind of reminds me of Fight Club in a way, where back when Fight Club came out, a lot of people our age, which we were kind of young adults at that stage, you know, would walk out of the theater and be like, yeah, we need to fucking blow up the credit unions. You know what I mean? Like, so it's understandable to get swept up in a V for Vendetta style, you know, opinion of society being broken and we need to take control ourselves. But I feel like Joker really, you know, to quote Colonel Kurtz, was a snail on a razor blade. Like, it really walked a fine line between
well said
promoting violence and destruction of society because of legitimate issues and promoting violence from the perspective of a psychopath, like, so it was a really delicate, path to walk. I think the hyperviolence to me and the like Jesus intensity of it was attempting to make it crystal clear that, to pull a quote from someone on Twitter, is like, it wasn't anything other than a horror movie. Like, you're supposed to be horrified by the violence. And I think that the little person in the scene where his coworker gets murdered viciously, his reaction is like, that's meant to like be the audience's reaction. You're supposed to be horrified by the breaking of Fleck. And if you don't horrify the audience, then you could encourage them to want that societal breakdown, rioting stuff at the end, a la Clockwork Orange's reaction or something.
Yeah. Well, I think they did a good job of it, because I felt bad for Arthur Fleck, but I didn't agree with what he was doing at all, and I was horrified by the violence.
Yeah.
I mean, as you would in a movie, when you see things like that in real life, it's, not that I've seen anything that violent, but when you see violence in real life, it's a different story. It's a lot more jarring. You see it in a movie, and, so I'd hate to think that anybody would make that mistake and think that, the right thing for them to do is to just start randomly, shooting people in subway cars and, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, man. Young people get funny ideas, but they rarely react on them, right? I mean, I'm sure I had some funny ideas at some point in my life based on, something that I saw, but they didn't stick with me.
I definitely had like anarchy style, maybe like fetish is probably a good word. Like when you're a teenager and you're all fuck the system, or at least from my perspective, I was all fuck the system, and you're like, yeah, I want anarchy. And then you just don't, or at least I didn't understand what that meant. And then, like, if you think about it now, or if I think about it now as an adult, like, I don't want anarchy, dude. I don't want a fucking Mad Max situation. I'm perfectly happy with trying to make a fucked up society work, as opposed to, fuck the system, let's burn it to the ground. So, I have empathy for the younger or less mature person who says fuck the system, but I don't have sympathy for that mindset at all. Like, I find it really disappointing that you could find yourself in that space where, you shoot up a fucking school because of how hurt you are inside. Like, I have zero sympathy, of course, but there are people that are that screwed up, like the movie theater in Colorado that got shot up during the Dark Knight or whatever Batman movie aren't showing this movie, and Warner Brothers issued a statement about it. And, there are police presences at movie theaters in certain areas, and there's other theaters that say you can't come and cosplay as the Joker because of safety concerns. And while it might seem a little overblown, like there was a legitimate shooting in a theater during a Batman movie, so it's a really weird time that we live in, and it kind of reflects to me a lot of the societal screwed upness of the film, where it is kind of the 1% versus the masses, and people are getting frustrated. And in this case, there's a kind of broken person who wears too much makeup, who had a fucked up childhood, that becomes a national hero. And I don't know if you can think of anyone else that wears too much makeup that's become a national icon recently, but I don't really need to say any more.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't have any love for that person who wears too much makeup either. But I don't know. Is it? It seems like it's a two-way thing, right? As society is influencing the movies, and the movies are influencing society.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that this movie is perfect for the time. Like, The Handmaid's Tale that Hulu puts out, I feel similarly about, which is like, I kind of treat The Handmaid's Tale as punishment that I need to watch, and like I need to go through it as a form of punishment for participating in society and not helping, other than being an observer. Like, it's like a form of self-flagellation, and I feel like it's similar with this, where like it felt like punishment. It felt like a form of punishment. I was just like, this is so intense, but like it is so a good reflection of where we are these days, that we just need to pay attention to not letting things break down the way that they do in these fantasy worlds,
That's funny. I maybe had not an opposite reaction, but definitely a different reaction. And maybe it's because I am just sort of getting numb from the crazy that's going on right now. But I was like, it's another kind of dark, violent movie. I've seen these before, I mean, it didn't. I think you drew a line to Darren Aronofsky at the beginning of the episode, and I don't know if it shook me that much,
No, it didn't. But it was in a kind of similar vein. Like, it had a hint of it for me.
I'm going to be honest, it didn't shake me at all. I just saw it and I was like, oh, yeah, that was a movie, So
right.
Maybe I'm not getting something that other people are getting, or maybe I'm just numb.
Well, you're also living in the United States and have been for the last 6 or 8 years, where I have not. So, my exposure to what's going on in the States, or in terms of just global news in general, is from a different perspective. I lived in Port-au-Prince and then I lived in Australia, so like I haven't been in the news cycle. I haven't been exposed to the same, conversations with people. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was a big factor.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not discounting the fucked up shit that's going down as far
no,
as
of course not. No.
legislation that's being put forth, and different things that are happening, and mass shootings and all that kind of thing. Those are really extreme circumstances. But I think most of the rioting and turmoil that's going on is on social media. If you're living your average daily life, things aren't really.
Yeah, if you're lucky enough to not be affected by things, it's really just a cacophony on social media. Yeah.
For the most part, it's yeah. But I think that's really what it's like. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I think that's mostly what it's like.
No, I agree. Or at least from my perspective, I agree completely.
Yeah.
But I think your use of the word numb is pretty accurate. I could easily see how it would become just desensitizing.
Yeah.
It's just like a news anchor saying, like 700 people died yesterday when 2 planes collided, and they're just like, and on to kitty cats, like it just becomes a desensitizing thing.
Yeah, I think it is.
So that was dark.
Yeah. We really need to cover something that makes us laugh soon, because these past couple episodes have not exactly been. I'm going to go and
kill someone on a subway train.
Oh man! So
I read a lot about this movie. So much of the talk about this movie, rather, is about its impact and how people are perceiving it, especially in this atmosphere of violent acts that we are living in this 2019 world. And I don't really want to personally spend a lot of time talking about it. I read a really good article in the New York Times today before we got on the air, and I will throw that in the show notes, and I want everybody to go there and read that. And look online under news and the Joker, and you will find plenty of articles that discuss this sort of thing. We don't need to get into it here, other than touching on what we've already touched on. I'm really speaking to the folks at home, not the two of you.
Just to be clear real quick though, like, I just want to say, like, from my perspective, I don't buy into the, like, seeming media narrative of like, oh, this is so shocking, they shouldn't have made the movie. How could they? This is so dangerous. Like, I don't buy into that bullshit. Like, I think that people are perfectly capable of watching a movie like this and taking away that it's about, a broken individual making bad decisions instead of turning this person into a hero. And like, I think the filmmakers did a good job of making it crystal clear what their intentions were. And the fact that people are like, how dare you, is just it's kind of bullshit. And yeah, like, I think, Kev, that's a great point. Like, if you want to read more about it, there's plenty of places to read about it.
Plenty of places to go read it. The one notable thing that I read that I'm going to read this on the air here, is Josh Brolin responded to this film, and he pumped out a Twitter post about it, and I'm going to read most of it. It's not very long, and it just says, to appreciate Joker, I believe you have to have either gone through something traumatic in your lifetime, and I believe most of us have, or understand somewhere in your psyche what true compassion is, which usually comes from having gone through something traumatic, unfortunately. An example of dangerous compassion would be to, say, make a film about the fragility of the human psyche and make it so raw, so brutal, so balletic that by the time you leave the theater, you not only don't want to hurt anyone, but you desperately want an answer and a solution to the violence and mental health issues that have spun out of control around us. Now,
yeah, well said.
I thought that was a great response to this film. Right?
Yeah, it's perfect.
We love Josh Brolin here on the show.
Yeah, excellent.
Now, that's a part of his post, and we will link up the entire post in the show notes.
I want to check that out.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude.
But beyond that, I'll just say, I'm just going to, one more thing, Ben, sorry. Sort of what Chad was saying about the violence, like, we're living in a time where I feel like there's a lot of fear-mongering going on. And people are starting to get paranoid and are paranoid. And we're sort of living in this atmosphere of that. And the more we give into it and not trust people around us, and I mean literally strangers, that's when we give into that sort of thinking and that sort of behavior. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to live my life like that. So
it's just propaganda.
I'm not, and sort of like what I was saying a minute ago, we're not going to get into it on the show. There's plenty of places where you guys can go read about that. We're going to keep chugging on what we thought about the movie, which we love.
Yeah.
Well, I do.
Yeah. Listen, this is art, right? And
yes,
I don't think censoring art is the way to go for
100%
creating a healthy society, right? I mean, there's always people that kind of come to the forefront and are, will point at music or video games or movies or, and anything and say that this could incite trouble, and surely it can, but I think there's always going to be something like that. And there's always going to be outliers in society. There's always going to be people like Arthur Fleck. And, censoring movies and art isn't going to change that situation. What's going to change that situation is getting people like Arthur Fleck help, and one poignant thing that happens in the movie is he loses his help, they shut down the social worker situation. So
social services completely, actually, the funding,
social services. So yeah, exactly. So, I think that's where people's attention ought to be, not freaking out about a movie and being like, oh my God, it's going to cause all this trouble. No, the trouble's already there. The movie is just like a signpost for some people, and those people need our help. So that's all I got to say. I think
yeah, absolutely.
And I think Josh Brolin is right. That you should walk out of this movie and you should feel like you don't want to hurt anybody and that you should look out for people around you. I think it's very poignant.
Damn right.
Yeah,
I agree, man.
Insert hilarious joke that lightens the mood of the show.
Yes.
Yeah. It was a great Ben, you're really on fire. You had a great opening tirade and a great monologue right there. I'm into it.
I love it. No, that was perfect. It's exactly the point that should be taken away.
All right, let's get off this and get on to what's great about this movie. So
yeah, man.
I think I said everything that I needed to say about the sort of like WTF, the DCU. What are you guys doing? This is just to put a bow on that. This is the kind of film that they should be pumping out. Every one of these films should be like that. And to defend Suicide Squad for a minute, I think Suicide Squad was moving in this direction, and they got choked.
They broke into a trip run.
Yeah, something, man. It got choked, and like they were like, no, it's too intense, it's too this, it's too real, it's too that, So, at any rate, let's talk about the film itself, like the various different layers of the film. I was going to say from the outside in, starting with like the music.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just absolutely, again, like we talked about it in Apocalypse Now. Great mix of score plus popular songs. We talked about that in The Boys, especially as well.
On every show, man. I'm loving this popular song mixing in trend.
Yeah.
It's what the funny thing is, and I know, Ben, you might have a different comment. I feel like it's been used forever, but I feel like it's being done really well right now.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I thought the score music was fantastic. I thought sometimes it was a little heavy-handed for use in the movie. Like they were ratcheting attention that didn't quite need to be You know, I mean, like I love music and I love music in movies, but sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Like the music is trying to drive the emotion a little too much. So I felt like it was doing that sometimes. And then I had another just weird thought. And Kev, you're probably the one to answer this question. Now, presumably we're in Gotham, right?
Yep.
Is Gotham supposed to actually be like a city in the United States, and where, like, you know, songs like Bring in the Clowns and That's Life and, you know, popular songs from our world, would they exist in that world? I mean, I would forgive them the license to just go ahead and do it, because you know, they used fantastic music and it fit perfectly. But I was like, I had this thought, you know, and I was like, would that exist in Gotham? You know?
Yeah, that's a really great question, man. That's a digression probably for another time. Like, we could go down that rabbit hole for a while, but I know that in the DCU, Gotham and Metropolis are a quote across the bay from each other.
Really?
And it's and it's because I looked it up like a year ago, because I was like, where do these places exist? Like, where is Central City? You know, like, where are all these places? And Metropolis and Gotham, near as I can tell, are like, if you go due south of New York, like where Shea is and the marshes, it's like they both kind of exist there, but on the water, you know, or like maybe a little bit further south even. You know what I mean? They don't supplant New York.
Yeah, right. Like, the headcanon for me was always that Metropolis was like New York and Gotham was like Chicago, but that was just in my head. No,
but like, Chicago has been used as an analog for Gotham a few times, and I believe in this film as well. It sort of looked that way, but I know it was for sure in the Nolan movies. But and then like Bloodhaven, for instance, is like where New Haven is.
Okay.
You know, so it's like kind of up the coast in Connecticut, and then like you got Gotham and Metropolis are kind of like near the current metro area in New York, but not right where New York is. So
that's an interesting question, though. Really, and it is probably a digression, but that's a super interesting thought.
Yeah, it's not like a criticism by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
I just had like that thought while I was watching it. I was like, wait a minute, does this music belong in this universe? Like, or is it, you know, or are we just supposed to? Is it like a, you know, like Star Trek, where, you know, everything's just sort of being translated for you? It's like you're hearing something from that universe that would essentially be the same song, you know. Because it's not like it's that different of a place. It's just, you know.
So continuing our talking about the music before we move on, I wanted to. I had a couple of notes about the music in here. One of them being just the music in general was amazing. We sort of already talked about that. The stand-up scene, when he finally goes to do stand-up, I want to talk more about Todd Phillips and like how well done this movie was, like, later. But the stand-up scene, he starts laughing like straight away, and then he tells like one joke, and then he holds his arms out, and like the score music just comes in, and it's really loud, and you just sort of see some of the rest of the stand-up scene, but you don't hear it. Like, you've already gotten the most important parts of the scene, and it's like this super long transition where you see him sort of, you know, doing more of the stand-up, but all you're really hearing is the score music. And I just thought that was really great editing choice, movie choice. I just thought it was great. It was really well done, and it was different too, and I really like that. You know, like we keep coming back to like, this film is, you know, in the classic sense, like Apocalypse Now. It's a piece of art, man. It's great. This is like what a film should be, man. Really.
Once we get through the music conversation, which we're going to continue right now, I'd love to come back to that, because I feel like that was a huge hint. That scene was a huge hint on a major plot point that I'd love to discuss. So keep going, but I'd love to circle back to that.
Fair enough. The only other thing I wanted to say about the music was when I called it the suit up scene. Like when he's getting ready to go on Murray's show, like number one, when he's getting ready to go on Murray's show and he suits up kind of as the Joker for the first time, like I couldn't believe that they played Rock and Roll Part 2 by Gary Glitter, but it worked so well. And it was, you know, no sound, just the music, and him, you know, walking out of his apartment, down those stairs, and I just thought it was great. It looked great. It sounded great.
But see, I didn't think it was great. It really pissed me off. But the transition, similar to the opening of Apocalypse Now, where it's helicopters into a ceiling fan, it was like rock and roll number 2 into like a synthed out, fucked up, weird score bit, and that worked for me. When it first started, I was like, what? So maybe we had a differing view on that, but it came good in the end.
Well, clearly, and I would encourage you to open your heart some more.
Open your
heart. I thought it was brilliant, man. I mean, to take a hackneyed, stupid baseball, like you said, baseball, but like it's been so co-opted by sports teams, and it's like to take that in this film and use it to such great effect. I thought, was just
that's fair,
awesome, man. So, anyway,
and anytime Joaquin Phoenix danced in this movie, I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
There was a whole lot of it, and my hat's off to just being that ballsy to do that. You know, like anytime Joaquin danced in the movie, like, you know, like there's a scene where he's like dancing around in his underwear, and it's just, you know, raw, and he's doing it. You know, it's like, yeah, sure, everybody's done stuff like that when there's not a fucking camera on them, but you know, when there is a camera on you, it's like, you know. So, but I mean, that just brought something to the character, you know. It's like when he comes out on stage at what was the Bobby De Niro's
Murray Franklin.
The Murray Franklin show. He comes out on the Murray Franklin show, and it's like the curtains like barely open, and like you see him, you know, it's beautiful. Another great thing worth mentioning in the movie. Like
he's like front lit.
He's it's front lit, and the camera's behind him, and he's like starting to dance. And like the curtains just open a little bit, and then like they suddenly like they switch to the outside, and it's like you can just kind of see his face like moving around behind the curtain, and then he like pops through and he starts like fabulously dancing, spinning around, and yeah, like has this like crazy charisma going on.
Yeah, you're right about the dancing. It was great, and there was lots of it. You're right.
Yeah, it really brought something, like it fleshed out the character in a really interesting way.
I agree, man. It was like it was a part of like his whole clown thing, Ben, and he just it kept it stayed in there.
Yeah. I mean, when he's, you know, or like when he's in the hospital and he's dancing for the kids and the gun falls out, you know, like, but like before the gun falls out, he's like, he's got everybody captivated, you know, and he's like,
That's interesting because it's like, especially after he kills the 3 guys on the train, where he runs and runs and runs and runs and then ends up in that public bathroom and has that kind of a dance. And it's pretty clear, I guess, thinking back on it now, but like it's like a releasing of the beast kind of thing. Like it's like the energy that he's feeling just like coming out. Like he's just like, it's kind of like a child, you know, like you see kids sometimes just like wig out and do crazy body movements and stuff when they were like full of raw energy.
Yeah, that was an interesting one because it almost looked like he was doing like Tai Chi or something.
Yeah.
Yes, I noticed that as well, Ben.
Yes, I noticed that as well, Ben.
Yes, Kev.
It might be worth just taking the opportunity to touch quickly on how Joaquin Phoenix kind of had a Christian Bale machinist, lost a ton of weight, really fucked up body kind of thing going on there too, which was really lent a lot to the character development. And like his shoulder and shoulder blade were all fucked up, which I haven't looked into whether that was legit or not. But I thought like him without his shirt, like when he was like ripping open his shoes or like dancing around shirtless, it was quite powerful stuff.
Yeah,
it was. You know, he was super thin.
There's that initial scene where he's trying to tighten up his clown shoe and he's got his shirt off. And it's like right after he gets the shit kicked out of him by those kids who steal his sign. Yeah, and you're just like, whoa, holy shit. It's like, it's kind of like
so much tension in his body.
Yeah, it's kind of jarring, like when you see him and you see how like gaunt he is. Yeah,
I don't think there was anything wrong with him. I think it was just perspective on the camera and just makeup, like made him look kind of, you know, sort of gnarled and twisted.
It just circling back to what you were saying before about the comedy scene. I wanted to ask you guys a question. Did you pick up that the love interest wasn't real and that he was making it up in his head before it was spelt out so clearly?
All right. I had that as a whole separate note for later, but yeah. Okay. We can talk about it right now. Yeah. I just wrote it as a question. Did he imagine being with the neighbor and being on Mire in the beginning? When he was in the beginning and he was on Mire and Mire was like, come down here. And he gave him a hug and, all that. Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you pick up that?
Did he imagine it?
Yeah, he did. I think that was pretty clear.
I picked it up when she said, oh, your name's Arthur, right? Don't you live down the hall? And right then and there, I was like, oh, the whole thing happened in his head. Right? Is that what you...
That's exactly what I thought. Did you kind of get that vibe, Ben, or what did it need to be spelt out as clearly as it was later?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing gets started when, just like, will you follow me around today?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like that whole thing was just like, no, that's not how people react to somebody in a hood following you around all day. Like,
yeah.
They're not like turned on, they're not like, yeah. So I picked up on it and then I kind of forgot about it, because it kept happening and I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong, like, I don't know, like I was kind of swept up in other stuff. But then when when the reveal came, I was like, oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do that.
and I guess the reason I asked the question is because like it's a minor gripe, but I feel like the only other complaint I have about the film, other than the clear need to delete Thomas Wayne's murder, is I don't think it needs to be spelt out so clearly that she wasn't there. Like I thought it painted it out clearly enough where if they didn't beat you over the head with the reveal, it would have been like, that's so cool that he hallucinates this girl's relationship the whole time. Or I think he's hallucinating the girl's relationship. Is he, isn't he, kind of thing, rather than just making it crystal clear.
I don't think they made it clear. I thought it was still kind of like...
No, there's that one scene where it shows a montage of the various scenes and she disappears from the scene. Like it shows the comedy scene and then she's not there. It shows on the street and then she's not there.
Hospital,
I didn't feel that was necessary because I kind of got it before that,
They make it clear when he goes to her apartment.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't need to then make it clear again.
Right, exactly.
And he's in there and she comes in and she's like,
why are you in here? Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing in my apartment? My kid's asleep. Please leave. That becomes pretty clear at that point.
I don't know, man. I think it didn't bother me. It was fine. Like, I mean...
Oh, no, it didn't. It wasn't like what a dick move. It was just like, I felt like it didn't need to be as heavy-handed. But like it wasn't a deal breaker by any means.
No, that's what I mean. Like the heavy-handedness of how they revealed it did not bother me. Like the fact that they went back and they flashed back through all those scenes and she wasn't in them, I was like, it was fine. It wasn't like, overly done. Like the Thomas Wayne murder part, that was way more egregious than that.
Yeah.
I just liked the transition from the comedy scene from him completely bombing to then he tells a stupid joke that she laughs at. And then, like you said, it goes to him putting his arms up and then they're like having a date. And I thought it was a very clever way to kind of make it clear that he was just in his own imagination throughout most of it. And I enjoyed that part.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying a second ago you wanted to talk about the look or the feel of the film?
Well, yeah. I mean, just, the one of the other I love when like filmmakers do this and they make the surrounding like a character in the film. And in this movie, that is the case. So Todd Phillips, I cannot believe this is the guy that made Starsky and Hutch, which I love, and The Hangover and Road Trip, for Christ's sake. I mean, this movie, like I had to remind myself that he made this movie when I was watching it because it looks so unbelievably good, man. The look of it, the set design, and the sound design are so good, man. I just could not get over it. I was so completely transported to that world. The look of the city, the feel, everything's just so scuzzy. When he goes to the social worker's office, there's just fucking boxes stacked to the ceiling all the way around her. Everything's got like a layer of filth and film on it. It just, every single little inch had that quality to it. Of course, they talk about how the trash is piling up in the beginning of the film on the news, but it's like, I mean, you just you're just there, man. You just see it. Like the way that Gotham is portrayed is so much a character in this film as anybody else in the movie. And I thought Todd Phillips and the rest of the crew did a phenomenal job of it, man.
It really successfully touches on the like Serpico, Taxi Driver films of that era kind of feel.
Yeah,
it does, man.
Yeah, Gotham is like oppressive. Like it's an oppressive vibe. Yeah.
Oh my God, so oppressive, man. And just it wasn't just the look of everything. Like, I mean, like there's so many great shots and great scenes, to go along with this backdrop. Like when he's on the bus, right before he talks to that kid and the woman says, leave my kid alone. The opening shot of the bus is like just outside the window of the bus, and he's leaning against the window. There's a little bit of rain on the glass, and it's just such a great shot, and those sorts of shots are just pervasive through this film. Like I said, like the suit up scene, like when he comes out of his place and down the stairs, and like the sun is coming through the window in the apartment, and then the sun is in the background when he's sort of going down the stairs, and that Gary Glitter song is playing. It's just, it looks amazing, man. There's an establishing shot with the train that shows the entirety of Gotham. I'd say the first quarter of the film.
It's like
great,
like almost like a drone shot straight up over the rails or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was an awesome shot.
Really great shot, man. And then talking about the sound design, just like one thing that just kept jumping out at me was the sound of the cigarettes being smoked. Like, my God, man. I it sounds funny to say it, but I'm serious. Like, it's like you could hear the tobacco and the paper burning on every inhale, man, and it that pervaded throughout the entire thing. And it really added a lot of flavor and layering for me.
That was a mental note for me, because I haven't had a cigarette in getting somewhere around 2 years now.
Oh, really?
And that's the movie. Like, I left the movie and I was like, for the first time in a while, I did that, like, searching, patting my pockets down for the pack of smokes thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it like got under my skin. The smoking in the movie got under my skin. Yeah. I was like, fuck, I don't smoke anymore. God damn it.
I even liked some of the scenes with him. Maybe it was like in The Social Worker, where he's down to the filter. Like, he's just like sucking on this thing. And it's, like, if you've ever smoked in your life and you've gotten that random like filter hit, and it's just like, oh, and he just doesn't give a fuck. I just love that little moment.
Mm. And when you suck it that low, that's where you get those yellow stains on your fingers, man. Yeah. So anyway, that's I just wanted to talk about that, and just the fact that I think Todd Phillips did a phenomenal job with this movie. Like, it looks amazing. The way he shot it, the script, everything. It's just so good.
What I didn't realize when I looked up Todd Phillips, and it was like, oh, The Hangover, and I was like, wait a minute, is this the dude that did Chernobyl? And then I had the same reaction to Chernobyl recently, where I looked up the guy that did it, and he's the guy that co-wrote The Hangover, and he co-wrote a lot of the movies with Todd Phillips. So it's like these guys worked on The Hangover together. Then one of them goes on to make Chernobyl and uses the Icelandic Cellist to do the score, and then the other one does Joker and uses the same Icelandic Cellist to do the score. And they were doing the scores. She said she was doing the score at the same time for both pieces, and
wow,
it was really hard. And it was just like, it's amazing that these guys make these like ridiculous comedies. And even like Adam McKay, like, he makes all these stupid comedies with Will Ferrell, and then he goes on to make like The Big Short and fucking Cheney's the Dick Cheney movie Vice. Like, there's some amazing stuff coming out of these creators these days that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, The Big Short is a really great movie, and underrated too.
And Vice is too.
I haven't seen that, but I will.
But it's just so remarkable to see these creators of what would just be considered a kind of B comedy movie back in the day being given budgets to make stuff that's like a passion project, and fuck me, they're knocking them out of the park.
Oh my God, this is a knock out of the park, no doubt about it.
No question.
I really liked just sort of talking about some other little moments and scenes, whatever. Like at the end there, when he, when he finally stands up on top of the police car and he puts his finger to his lips and he feels the blood, and then he takes the blood and he smears it into a Joker smile, I thought was just awesome, man. and his costume, like his suit that he
Suit was
wore.
great.
I am, number one, so glad it was not purple. I loved that it was that sort of like kind of purple magenta-y kind of color with that gaudy yellow vest, but then
It's a yellow contrast.
yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry, not a yellow vest, an orange vest, and then a green silk shirt with a tone on tone pattern on it. And it was like it was nice. Like he looked good when you showed the close ups. You could see the quality of the materials in the suit and the shirt. It was just a great look. I really liked the look of him, like in the face paint too. Like it was cool, like how he transitioned it from the clown stuff. Like it was just well done.
And it was different enough from a lot of the other Jokers where, like, I think going into the movie nervous about how another Joker was going to work or if it was going to work, I feel like he played it differently. It was different enough and it worked quite well for me.
Oh, it worked wonderfully. And I mean, here's another thing, like just talking about the richness of the detail that they put into every little thing in this film, like the titling.
Oh, yeah.
Titling was so good.
The giant yellow Joker was just like, yes.
Exactly. And I almost said out loud, like, and then just the big, like, in script, the end, at the end, I was like, that's so great. Like, all of the titling was so good. I almost said out loud in the theater, like, I love this titling. Like such a nerd, dude. Like, it was so great. It was just great.
I had the exact same reaction.
Right? Really good stuff, man.
I don't know if we want to do this now, but I just had a thought when talking about the end. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Fucking A, dude.
What the fuck was the end?
How so?
Which part?
What the fuck was the end? Because I missed it.
Oh, you mean you literally missed it?
Yeah,
Remind me. I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Where he shoots fucking De Niro in the face?
No. The very end of the movie, he's like apparently like, I don't know, in a fucking mental hospital or something, and he's talking to the same like social worker, only they're in like a mental hospital, and it's all like white subway tile and shit. And then like he's just kind of like wandering in the hallway, like with front lighting and
No. Here's what happened. It was a different woman.
Yep, it was a different woman.
And it was to signify that he
the
had
same conversation, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And okay, but sorry, go ahead.
he had fully, made his transition over to the dark side Joker that we know and love. And he walks, and then that's when the sound cuts out, and they cut to him walking in the hallway, and you see the blood footprints signifying that he just murdered the woman in the room. And then, he goes around the corner, and then he gets chased by an orderly, and he goes back the other way. He gets chased by another orderly, and that's it.
And then it kind of has that cartoony, like, running through the back a couple times thing and then duplicating surreal thing, which was interesting. But
Okay. Thank you for clarifying, because the projection was so fucking shitty, and this is why I hate seeing movies here. The projection was so fucking blurry that I could see something happening in the like I could see the bloody footprints sort of blurring off into the distance, and then a bunch of blurry action happening.
Okay.
And I liked the whole scene with the conversation with the social worker, and he tells the joke, or he's laughing, and she's like, "What's so funny?" He's like, "I was thinking about a joke," and he's like, "Well, what is it?" Like, you wouldn't think it was funny, or whatever he says. Like,
and she goes, "You wouldn't get it." Yeah,
you wouldn't get it, right? I liked that, but why was he there? Like, they just panned. When did the cops come to get him? I didn't see that part.
I think it was an attempt to go from the origin of Joker to him in Arkham, which is kind of, we know him as someone who spent a lot of time in Arkham Asylum. So I took it as him
I get it,
transitioning into Arkham, I guess.
I don't remember him getting busted by the cops between.
It's because he didn't. They're assuming that there's a leap there. Like he's standing on top of the police car, all the guys are around him, and it's sort of like a cut to, okay, the riot's over. He got picked up by the cops and put in Arkham.
That just seemed unnecessary to me.
Really? Yeah, I kind of liked the transition. Maybe because, like, I vaguely recall how much of an association the character has with Arkham. And I kind of was like, okay, yeah, cool. It's like, it's basically the origin story is chapter 1, and then
That was one for the Batman nerds.
There you go. The beginning of chapter 2 is him in Arkham. That's kind of how I took it.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, I did. It didn't bother me at all. I liked it actually. I thought it was cool because it sort of it solidified that he had now become sort of the Joker that we all know so well.
I mean, if I'd seen the conclusion of it, I probably would have liked it a little more, but it just seemed jarring and unnecessary to me. I was like, well, why? I was already ready to put my coat on and walk out of the place. And then they did that. And I was like, oh, I'm like, well, okay. That seems like it could have been an end credit scene.
Maybe there should have been more double exposure, Ben, and you would have been happier with some Apocalypse Now double exposures.
Just, yeah, if they had mirrored that over the rioting that was going on.
Yeah, exactly. And had some Doors music playing.
Maybe replayed the murder of Thomas Wayne and
in slow motion.
We could have played "Take It As It Comes" by the Doors. Take it easy, baby.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to say another thing that jumped out at me was the flashback scene when he's reading about his mom, when he gets the file and he's reading about it. He's there. He's in the room where she's being sort of, not interrogated, but, she's having that conversation with that guy and he's there. He's in the room against the wall, with his arms crossed, intently watching what she's saying, and she's revealing that he was tied to a radiator and all that sort of stuff. I just thought that was a really great choice of a way to portray that scene.
I don't recall that, but that is clever.
Yeah, it was great. Oh my god, you missed out. Oh my god, it was the best. Oh my god.
No, I mean, I saw it. I just don't remember the scene.
I know. I'm saying, oh my god.
Oh my god,
it was the best.
I like that kind of him getting the file and snagging it off the dude and kind of hinting to the guy behind the cage, the worker at the asylum, that he's like, I've done bad stuff. It was kind of like a priest confession scene kind of thing.
Yep.
It was cleverly handled.
I did too. I had a note there too that I just really liked that actor that played the administrative guy was he was great. He was just great.
Terrific. Yeah.
Yeah. Played it well. Great choices, the whole thing.
I mean, have you ever been in a situation, maybe not something that intense, but you're just kind of being friendly with somebody that you don't know. And then they turn around and sort of reveal something to you that you're like, huh?
Okay.
Yeah. And you're like, all right then, Chief. Great. Yep. All right, cool.
I'll take my coffee now. Thank you.
Yeah. Somebody just turns around. They're a little too weirdly familiar with you, tell you something where you're like, you don't know me that well, man. You shouldn't be telling me that.
Yeah, I don't need to know your deepest, darkest secrets. I just want a ham sandwich, please. Thank you very much.
I would just, yes, very much. Thank you.
How about that? Speaking of ham sandwiches, how about that guy that sells him the gun that just gets brutally murdered in his apartment? That was quite a scene.
That scene was so intense. I had a visceral emotional reaction to that. It was so intense. And I had even more of a reaction to the actor, the little person actor, his reaction to it, his choices in that scene were just, he played that so well. It
was horror magic. But
it was magic. No, it was magical. It was great. And he was great. And I just was like, wow, this is awesome, man. Just awesome.
Yeah. I didn't have a lot of sympathy or time for the amount of shit talk that they had throughout the movie for that small actor. I thought
that was stupid, yeah.
I mean, I guess it fits with the 80s theme of people would have been horrible to, a person with that difficulty, but I kind of feel like it was fine right up until he was jumping to get the chain and had to ask for help. It kind of gave the Joker an opening to say, you were the only one that was nice and kiss him on the head, which was quite interesting. But I don't know. I thought that killing the guy that takes piss out of the short guy put all those jokes to bed, and then they go on to have the jumping to miss the chain thing to add insult to injury. And I don't know how I feel about that. I know it's super precious of me, but I was just kind of not into it at the time.
I get what you're saying, but I think they did that to ratchet up the tension because you're not really sure if he's going to kill him or not.
Yeah.
Up until that point. And I think that's the reason they did it more than to try and showcase, some vertical challenge. Yeah, I mean, I don't, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I don't think that's what they were trying to do with that scene. I think they were just trying to put one little more, just ratchet the tension up for a few more seconds, because there's the whole thing where he like opens the door for him, then he shuts it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. That's true. That last little bit was just fucking amazing.
And then he kisses him on the forehead and lets him go,
He's just got blood spatter all over half of his white painted face and stuff. It was just like, and he's so nonchalant about it. He's just sitting there like catching his breath, like totally fine with having stabbed the dude in the eye with the scissors and stuff. It's just like, oh my God, dude.
Yeah. Like stabbing in the head and kicking him in the head like 9,000 times. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you're meant to view that scene through the eyes of the little guy. And, he sort of telegraphs the emotion of the scene.
So it was
perfect. Masterfully.
Perfectly.
Yeah. He makes that fucking scene, man. He makes that scene.
I mean, I didn't know how it was going to go down because they telegraphed the whole scene, like he's putting his makeup on, the knock is at the door. He grabs the scissors. The minute you see it's the dude that gave him the revolver, like this dude's fucking getting it. He's getting the scissors. I know it. Like there's no question. It's going to fucking happen. But how is it going to go down? And then.
Right, exactly.
So like the scene is telegraphed hugely. But then, man, it pays off. It's extremely intense. Right up to the last second.
I kind of feel like the whole movie was telegraphed. Like, I'm not a fucking genius or anything by any stretch of the imagination, but like I picked up on all of like every plot point. I was like, okay, she's fake. Okay, that's fake. Okay, as soon as it was like him insinuating that he was gonna go on to the Murray whatever show and blow his own head off as a form of like attention seeking. It became clear to me that it was like he's probably going to go on there, Murray's going to insult him, and he's going to blow his head off. Like it just kind of like it was all obvious enough.
Yeah.
But I feel like the way it was handled, like the way it was revealed, was masterful. So that it kind of like what you were just getting at.
Yeah, I think you're right. You could smell what was going to happen, but the way it unfolded was kind of delightfully surprising and interesting. Which doesn't always happen, right? There's telegraphing in movies all over the place, and a lot of times you're just like, yeah, okay, there it was, yay.
But yeah, and a lot of times you don't enjoy the movie because you can call it in advance. But in this case, it didn't bother me. Yeah,
this time, yeah, it's like you could see something was going to happen, but like they would always manage to throw a little bit of a curveball, and kind of, there's always fireworks. It wasn't like cold ham sandwich or whatever.
Hey, I want my ham sandwich.
Yeah. Ham sandwich.
Cold hams. I don't know why I said that, but
I don't either, but I like it.
I liked that you said that.
That's where I just died, by the way. Even though it wasn't a death.
I'm doing CPR because I enjoyed that one.
I'm doing CPR because I enjoyed it. I like that. Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, cold ham sandwich t-shirts on our merch site.
Oh, I got to write that down. I write down, whenever I listen to it, I write down merch at the top of my notes, and there's plenty of merch, dude. There's some really good stuff.
Yeah. Just cold ham sandwich.
Cold ham sandwich. Only on In This Episode, Everybody Dies. Are we ready to rate this?
We haven't talked about the last scene. I think it would be worth talking about him on the talk show and then rate it.
Yeah.
Go.
No, I already kind of did talk about it. The thing about that scene that really made an impression on me was when he comes out on stage. It's like...
Agreed. Me too.
Yeah, he's just kind of like warming up behind the curtain there and he's almost kind of like doing the stuff like he was doing in the bathroom after the initial triple homicide.
Yeah. But juxtaposed against the practice run he did earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So that whole thing, like, and just him coming out and it sort of like mirroring what his things haven't always gone so swimmingly for Arthur Fleck when he gets out in front of a crowd in this movie. So it was interesting to see it sort of just like he's so in his skin at that point, like he's figured it out and he's become who he really is, that it shows, it's like there's like a confidence in what he's doing.
I agree. Well, I think too, to take that a step further, Ben, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about, him making the choice that, he sees now that, his life is a comedy.
Right. Yeah, precisely.
And he has now accepted that and he is locked in, and that is where he is going full force. So like the whole suit up scene with the Gary Glitter music and then up to and including like him sort of like getting himself psyched up behind the curtain and then going out and making such a grand entrance is the prelude to what he says when he's sitting in the chair with Murray. Because like, honestly, like I was surprised to hear him own a lot of the things that he said when he was sitting in the chair. And not to draw it out into a long-winded thing, but like, you know, a lot of the things that Murray, you know, starts talking to him about the Wall Street guy. Like, I never thought he would admit to killing the Wall Street guys. And Murray's like, well, you've incited this whole riot with all these people. And he's like, yep. And he owns all of it. And I didn't think he was going to do that, but it's like that's sort of the whole point, is that he has now owned it. He is owning everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, you have a lot of compassion for Arthur through the whole movie, that he keeps doing things that sort of alienate him from you. But it's strange because at the same time, like, you're, you know, in that scene, like, I was like, all right, man, don't fuck it up, you know, like, you know, like I was like, just still like had this weird, like, I was like trying to like root for him or something, you know, like, not that there was any way he was going to turn it around. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to pan out, but like, you know, it was like I kind of wanted to see him have his moment in front of people like that, you know, like I was like, all right, dude, you're here, you may as well do it right, you know?
And then his yeah, no, I agree. And then his Murray, the Murray reaction, the shooting him was just, I mean, it absolutely shocked me. I was like, wow. I would literally, my jaw was open, like my mouth was open in shock and awe. I not believe that he did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really want to see that scene again, just especially to hear the dialogue leading up to the kind of climax, because I feel like that dialogue between De Niro and Joaquin Phoenix was like, it really was the most critical couple of minutes of the movie, where Murray's playing a surrogate for society and morality, and Joker is essentially a surrogate for, kind of like you mentioned, Kev, like chaos, but also like kind of a fuck you, fuck the system. And not in a like Fight Club way, but in just like a, you know, don't fucking blame me, dude. You made me. You guys cut the fucking funds. You did all this shit. Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't sit there on your high horse and say, oh, you're a bad boy. It's like, fuck you, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that really powerful. And I won't say that I do feel as though like my sympathy for him broke at that point, because it's a rather immature approach to a legitimate societal problem. Like, obviously going on a mass murder spree, you could consider a pretty immature way to deal with a problem. But man, was it fucking in your face, and like you said, Kev, jaw dropping.
Good God, yeah.
Yeah.
And perfect for the Joker character. It's perfect for the story of the Joker.
Totally.
And unfortunately, it's also a perfect reflection of some of the ways that we're interacting with each other today. But we already touched on that. But man, it was just like a holy shit moment for sure.
You know what? I found myself thinking about, I'm trying to remember. I mean, maybe this is just what I'm thinking about. I mean, maybe this is like a game of telephone and it's gotten distorted in my own head over the years, but I feel like there's a scene in one of the Dark Knight movies or in the one with Heath Ledger as the Joker, where he's telling a story. I think it's Heath Ledger actually telling a story about himself, more or less. And he's, likens the sort of chaotic nature of being like a dog who chases after a car and then not knowing what to do with it once he catches it, sort of a thing. And I feel like, you know, that was portrayed really well in almost every outcome in this movie, you know, like where, you know, like we're talking about the telegraphing thing or whatever, but then like, you know, no cold ham sandwich, but you know, something really good. And it's that like unpredictable nature of the Joker, where he's just sort of, he just wants to fucking tear shit up. Like he doesn't even set out to tear shit up. He just ends up tearing shit up.
Yeah, he ends up standing on the hood. Yeah. But he's an unintentional agent of chaos in the making, I suppose. And then once he becomes fully formed and reaches his final form, he's like, okay, now I'm an intentional agent of chaos. A la the scene in the end with the blood on the floor, I guess.
Right. It's almost like he's this like this Chauncey Gardner of chaos or something, you know, like this unwitting participant in like all this stuff that's going on around him. It's interesting. Yeah.
Similar to your comment about The Dark Knight, like I guess my last thought on the film before we rate it is I picked up another echo from The Dark Knight. I think it was in The Dark Knight towards the end where it talks about, you get the hero that you deserve. And I feel like this movie was kind of a piss take on that, where it's kind of saying like, you don't deserve a hero, society. You deserve a villain because you're so fucked. And so here's your hero, and he's
wow.
And he's not actually a hero, and he's not an anti-hero. I think he's a false idol. And so, like, all these guys idolizing him on the hood of a car, it's a false... He's not something to idolize. And I think that's kind of the ultimate joke of the movie, is that, you got these idiots idolizing him, whereas they're clearly not in on the joke, and how clearly he is not a hero. He's the villain. And so it was one of the more interesting villain origin stories.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Agreed. That was quite a head full.
Although he does seem to be clearly delighted by the whole thing.
Sure.
Well, he's getting the attention. Yeah.
He seems to be delighted by it, but also sort of indifferent to it at the same time. Like, it doesn't influence, has not one thing to do with what he's really doing, right? Like, it's not a motivate. Yeah. It doesn't it hasn't influenced him, I guess is what I want to say.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I like this as an origin story, whereas we've been so fatigued with origins, where you get to see the guy become the Joker before he's addicted to, the attention and the murder. It's like he's getting a taste of it for the first time, and he's not an intentional agent of chaos yet. And like, it's really an interesting place to explore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have any comments on that scene, Kev, or do you want to move on to rating?
No, I like what you said, and I threw in my quip or two. I'm ready to move on.
Well, let's rate her.
Yeah, let's give it a stamp.
I'm going to go first. Rating this film, I think that this is a great film beyond just being a great movie. It's like we were talking about Apocalypse last week. I said this already. It's a piece of art, man. It's great. It's what films should be. And I think it's sort of going to be in the annals of the great films, man. It's really well done. I think Todd Phillips really did a great job and really knocked it out of the park. And I'm going to give this thing a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bada bing.
9 out of 10, man.
So are we ready for the algorithm, or do you want to go first, Benny?
Oh, boy. Let Ben go first.
Yeah, because I'm going to do what I usually do and go a little loosey-goosey and renegade with my evaluation of this thing. So this movie to me reminds me of something like Taxi Driver. I mean, I don't know if you heard this, Kev, but while you were tending to dear friend of the show and special guest Tiny Gojira, I had mentioned to Chad that I feel like this movie would have been a great movie, even like you could have kind of removed the whole DC war Joker stuff from the movie, and it kind of would have stood on its own.
Definitely.
But that being said, man, for Joaquin Phoenix's performance alone, I think this movie definitely deserves, like a good 2 thumbs up.
Oh my God.
I fucking love it when you go off script with ratings, dude.
I do too, man, because 2 thumbs up does not describe the quality of Joaquin's performance.
I can't wait until we review the newest Avengers, and you're like, I gave that a fist bump.
This one gets a golden banana.
Fuck, I love
it. Oh my God.
No, I mean,
I'll leave it there. That's perfect.
Your algorithm puts a lot of pressure on things. So if I had to give it a number, I'm going to say
it's different.
It's a different thing, and there's a lot. I mean, you're pitting all movies versus all movies, whereas I tend to think of these like superhero films as a category or something, But it's way up there, man. Yeah,
it's just my view on movies. It doesn't mean it has to be your view on movies.
Yeah, no, I know it's fine, but it does, because it is a thing. It does have weight, and does, you know what I'm saying? It creates.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, it pulls us all in a direction, I guess. But I think this movie stands, good Lord, I got to give it like 8.5.
Sure.
Shit, maybe even 8.9. I don't know. But it's really good. Golden banana, folks. This movie gets a golden banana.
A golden banana and 2 thumbs up.
Golden banana. Just really quickly, I want to just say something, Ben, because it's important. I read this great article, and for the life I'm looking at, I cannot find it at the moment. but it was Todd Phillips' 5 main influences for this film. And it was Taxi Driver, The King of Comedy, which also starred De Niro in a sort of similar kind of role. Modern Times, Dog Day Afternoon, and there was one other. That's out of memory. I can't find this article, but I will find it, and we'll throw it in the show notes for all you folks out there that want to check that out. I just thought that was noteworthy because Taxi Driver was literally one of his influences for this film. Anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of adjectives have been thrown around about what people felt, or what we've all felt when we walked out of this film. And I walked out and I Taxi Driver popped into my, Taxi Driver was in my head, but it was still in my head at the end of the movie. I was like, wow, this really, it's not the same movie, not by a long shot, but the way I felt was kind of the same way, the first time I saw Taxi Driver, I think I felt pretty much the same at the end of Joker. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No, I like it. I think, algorithmically speaking, I think
lay it on us, algorithm.
Yes, I had a real hard time placing this because, from an execution standpoint, it's a fantastic piece of cinema. It's awesomely acted, and all of the various reasons that Kev gave to give it a 9, I think are perfectly legit. I suppose part of the reason I struggled a little bit was because I felt guilty liking it as much because of not wanting to worship the villain, and so I kind of similar in sense of not in the sense of how heavy it was, but similar in the sense of how confused I am about how I feel about it is the Requiem for a Dream thing I mentioned earlier, where Darren Aronofsky is one of my favorite directors. Requiem for a Dream is extremely well executed, but I never want to see it again because it makes me feel horrible. This isn't anywhere near that, but it's in a similar kind of ballpark where I don't want to put this thing up into a legendary status. My gut is to say don't put it up in a legendary pedestal because of how fucked up I felt walking out of it. I mean, you could argue either way, but in terms of where it ended up on the algorithm, it's not too far off where you guys were. I think it's a great movie. For me, great movies are in the 7s, fantastic movies are in the 8s, and legendary movies are in the 9s. So the neighborhood that this is in is kind of, it's better in my view than A Hunt for Red October, the original Willy Wonka, Ex Machina. And then where it specifically gets directly on top of is it's one better than V for Vendetta. And I think that's a really interesting place for it to be because V for Vendetta is hero worship of a revolutionary that makes sense to a lot of people. And a lot of people wear that mask now and it's considered a fun trope. Whereas I think Joker risks being a trope and it risks fucking idiots putting on a Joker mask and going out and causing trouble. And I think that it succeeds in deterring you from that opinion because it's not the way to go. And I think the horror of the movie really makes it clear that you shouldn't feel that way about it. And so it ends up at a 7.7, and then a couple movies that are better than it on my list are The Abyss, The Goonies, Full Metal Jacket. It's kind of in that neighborhood.
Wow.
So it's really good, but I hesitated to make it great, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is a good score for you and your algorithm, yeah.
That makes sense in your algorithmic world. But you know what? I will agree with you. I don't know if I'll ever see this movie again. I don't know if I have the desire to see it again.
I will. I can't wait to see it again.
I might not, I don't know. But I kind of felt the same way with Taxi Driver. In fact, I think I may have only seen Taxi Driver one more time, 2 times.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's
like Deer Hunter, man. It's so depressing. It's just so disturbing.
Yeah, Deer Hunter, I could never watch again, I don't think. It's good, but
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I suppose despite the fact that the algorithm is nerdtastic, I enjoy seeing where it falls with other films. I think it kind of lends an interesting dimension to it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's an interesting project that you've embarked on there. And it's cool because you have a foundation now that, it's you've set it up. So it's interesting. I would be interested to see. I don't know if I could do it. I'm too wishy-washy, I think. And I'm too captivated by things in the moment,
Same here. I think our brains are different than his, and I think that we're always excited to hear what the algorithm has to say. That's why your new code name is Algorithm, dude.
Yeah. I think your opinion is your algorithm is, you know, we can say it's nerdy and we can make fun of you for it, but it's actually like it's more grounded probably than most of my reviews are. I'm like enamored with something in the moment, and then like next year I'm like, nah, I don't know, I guess it wasn't that great, you know.
It does change though, like, you know, Apocalypse Now moved up 25 places because of a rewatch. Like, I think it's a living thing. Like, I think your opinions of movies change over time for sure.
Sure.
So how did we die this week? I did CPR on Ben. I can't remember why. I died. I can't remember that why either. This is exciting. How did you die, Kev?
I didn't.
You didn't fucking die. That's awesome.
That's what makes this such a momentous show. No, I did not die. Which makes it like this. It's like a paradox. We can't.
Do we need to change the title of the show now? The name of the show?
Yes. In this episode, everybody dies but Kev.
You were missing in action for a little while, so
that's true. Yeah.
You weren't dead. You didn't die, but you were maybe presumed dead for a moment.
No. I since this title of the show is in this episode, everybody dies. Everybody has to die. And in this episode, I was killed once again by Tiny Gojira. Next death.
I don't remember why you ended up with CPR, Ben. Do you remember? Oh, you were talking about ham sandwiches. I thought that was good. You didn't die in the ham sandwich.
No, he did.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm sure some people out there thought I did. So.
Yeah. And mine was committing suicide. I can't remember why I committed suicide, though.
Shit, I can't remember.
Because you're dumb?
It was funny, though.
I don't remember either. All right, I think that's going to cover it for this episode. Folks, we really enjoyed talking about this film, Joker. I loved it. We all really loved it, and we hope you enjoyed it as well. Thanks so much for tuning in, and this is Mulvey saying I'll see you on the next one.
See you guys later.
Yeah, thanks everyone for sticking with us through this dark slog. I know it's been a little serious for the past couple weeks, but it's going to start getting funnier again. Don't worry, brighter times are coming. I'm smiling right now.
Well said, Ben. Good night. All right, that's going to wrap up this week's episode, folks. Next week, we're going to be talking about the exciting Neil Blomkamp trilogy of District 9, Elysium, and Chappie. And this is going to be really more of a focus on the director himself rather than the films. Remember, folks, you can find the show notes for today's episode in your podcast app of choice or at our website, ebd.fm/episodes/24. You can shoot us questions using the Twitter hashtag AskEBD. You can find me at Mulverine on Twitter. That's MOHLVERINE. Chad is at Chad Normal on Twitter, and Ben is at Jarhigo on Twitter. That's JARHEEGO. I'd like to take a minute and thank everybody so much for tuning into the show. It really means a lot to me and the boys. If you'd like to support the show, there are two great ways you can do it. First, by rating and reviewing us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast muffins. Or you can tell somebody to check out the show. Word of mouth is incredibly powerful, so please spread the word. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.